over time. There's no question.
Okay, that would be fantastic. The next slide is about district expertise and oversight. District staff was not capable to review and properly assess the water mitigation solutions proposed by the developer's engineers and failed to seek professional advice. It's not meant to be rhetorical, but it's probably going to end up being that way. Did this lack of expertise contribute to the poor oversight shown by the district during the construction phase of Seawatch? And the second one, and you may have, engineering may have some answers to this one, but why was the district unable to find important records of as-built drawings? I know when you were doing that first drilling program next to us, in the closed area, there were many times engineering was thwarted by the lack of as-builts. So there are significant drainage issues. Now, sorry, I'm talking about the stacked rock wall that lines the south side of Gale Avenue North. There are significant drainage issues identified with the rock walls along Gale Avenue North on the south side of the road. The result of discussions and recommendations between the developer and the district was a questionable easement agreement granted between Concordia and Concordia. And our question is, how does an easement agreement between the developer and the developer address Thurber's concerns regarding stability, drainage, and the formation of future sinkholes? I'll carry on. How does this fulfill the requirements of the remedial work requirement proposed by Thurber? And that term, I think it was called Remedial Work Action.
Action, yeah. RWA.
Or was it, what was it called?
Remedial action requirements.
Thank you. Remedial action requirements. I probably have about 10 different acronyms for that thing throughout this,
Okay.
but you know what we mean. Thanks, Leisha. Refusal to act for nearly 4 years on Thurber's 2008 recommendation resulted in the 2012 sinkhole and the Seawatch closure. We understand that this was repaired to the satisfaction of the district, confirmed by the mayor at the time's public announcement and acknowledgement that the district assumed ownership of the roads and infrastructure. Given the closure of Gale Avenue North, Seawatch Lane remains the only access to the majority of the residents in Seawatch. Questions would be, if this was repaired to the district's satisfaction, then why is the road still partially closed today? And an additional question, was the repair accompanied by any warranty or geotechnical assurances?
Okay, just before you leave that, Councillor Seegers had a question. Are you talking about, I thought the repairs were for Sea Lane in 2012.
Sorry,
and is Sea Lane still partially closed?
Seawatch Lane is partially closed.
It remains partially closed. Okay. That's what you're saying.
Well, that's part of the meeting, so if people don't know, and
Well, you're referring to two
oh, am I?
three
Oh,
things, so
sorry.
we just want to make sure we know exactly
Oh,
what you're
okay.
referring to.
It's quite possible. It wasn't meant to be that way.
No.
Oh, the Seawatch closure? I should have said Seawatch Lane closure.
Okay.
Or should I?
No, that's fine.
Yes,
That's
thank you.
correct.
Okay,
We just want to make sure that we
Just,
understand
yeah.
you're talking about the continued partial closure of Seawatch Lane and the current closure of Gale Avenue North.
right. So there's a half a lane, and at that it's quite tight. And the majority of the people that live in Seawatch live beyond that closure of Seawatch Lane.
Okay.
The district rushed into a settlement agreement proposed by the developer and rescinded the remedial action requirement. Did I get it right that time? Recommended by Thurber to avoid legal confrontation. Why did the district refuse to impose the remedial action requirement and rush to make the settlement without completing the recommendations of the RWA? And the last, pardon me? Raw, remedial action requirement.
Okay.
Or how did this settlement ensure future safety for future buyers? So after that settlement was done, there was a number of homes. There was even development permits taken out and occupation permits received, and people, the developer sold and people bought the homes. So after that date. The district is claiming that the developer is responsible. The mayor has stated in public that the district has an indemnity against the developer. To date, the district has not made aware any action to act on this indemnity. Not that we know of. If the district has a valid indemnity, then why is the district and their lawyers unable or unwilling to take necessary steps to prevent and stop the developer in the disposal of its assets? And the last question on this subject is, what are the financial instruments supporting this indemnity, if any? So the next few slides are going to be around transparency. The residents of Seawatch have made numerous requests over the past few months to discuss our issues informally with the district. All have gone unanswered. The problems in the Seawatch neighborhood and surrounding areas have increased, and there are no plans by the district to repair, as far as we know, again. The district is aware of these issues and the imminent dangers involved with their inaction. The district has mismanaged this affair historically and continues to do this today. We have been requesting all information pertaining to the events at Seawatch from its inception until now. The district has resisted every step along the way to provide this information. It appears that most of the decisions regarding Seawatch were also made during in-camera meetings. Questions. Will you authorize a resolution to release all of these documents in a timely manner to the public? And why was the 2013 Thurber report not made public until after the 2015 sinkhole event? And the last question on this slide is, why did the district continue to issue building and occupancy permits, allowing new residents to move here long after this report was written? Still on transparency, so we were told that for at least a few of your reports, engineers were required to provide them in draft form. This is quite unusual, as the question would be, are modifications made by professional engineers modifications that showed up in the final draft? Will you provide all draft reports together with proposed changes suggested by the district prior to these reports being finalized? And as reported in numerous reports, and most recently in the July 11, 2017 Thurber, the test monitoring wells were designed to provide crucial data and public safety. Why have you abandoned doing these and reporting them out to the residents? Even my last discussion with your engineer asked me if we had any reports to give him, because he hadn't received any for quite some time. The most recent report by Thurber was alarming, to say the least. But for the first time, it summarized very well the various components relating to the issues at Seawatch. Most notable, found in a number of paragraphs, including the final one, was the district's refusal to mitigate the problems identified in 2015 to repair the known broken storm sewer. It states that this inaction by the district as the primary cause of the escalating events at Seawatch. Will this council authorize district staff and district engineering to carry out all of the recommendations, or any of the recommendations for that matter, in the Thurber July 11th, 2017 report? Despite the mayor's initial promise to fix the problem, the mayor encouraged the residents, now we're talking about this statement made about our best bet might be to launch legal action against the district. Given the Municipal Insurers Association response, I said, smugly stating in a meeting that we were all at, that they usually settle cases such as these, meaning ours, for 10 cents on the dollar. Then why is the mayor encouraging residents to launch lawsuits? If the mayor's objective is to find a solution, then how, given the MIA's comment, do you feel that a fair agreement can ever be achieved? Is the mayor and council suggesting that we lose our homes, our life savings, and more to pay for the district's lack of care, inaction, lack of oversight, and wrong decisions? So I have a few summary statements. I'll just whip through these. There was inadequate expertise and oversight during construction. The recommendations of your own engineers were not incorporated into our development. The remedial action requirement was repealed without consulting the residents. The district has not maintained or repaired their failing infrastructure. And the district continues to ignore the recommendations by its engineers. So, as homeowners, we had nothing to do with the approval of this subdivision. We had nothing to do with the proposed engineered systems. We had nothing to do with the construction of your roads, and we had nothing to do with providing oversight. And we certainly had nothing to do with your district accepting the roads and infrastructures from the developer as complete to the satisfaction of the district. So as you can expect, we have some expectations of our own. We expect the district to follow provincial laws and their own mission and vision statements around responsibility, transparency, honesty, and integrity. We also expect you to repair your roads and infrastructure so we can live safely in our homes, and the subdivision that we moved into can be completed as originally planned. And we insist that the mayor fulfill his promise after the 2015 sinkhole when he said, "I promise that I will fix this." So that is the somber end of my presentation.
Thank you. And again, it's a good presentation with questions that are not simply rhetorical, but good questions that you deserve responses to on a number of them. It's another good example, though, of why this is not a forum where there's a number of categorical statements that I'd have to say we simply disagree with the categorical nature of those statements. And that's the kind of thing that would have to be discussed in a judicial forum as opposed to a forum such as this. But we take those questions. It's going to be complicated as I try and figure out how to respond in terms of the district, what the district has been doing. The other thing I would say that it points to, which is something I remember Councillor Mueller writing in his first blog after the election of 2014, that the district of Seashelt and the council is a continuing body. That in fact this cannot be glibly said, well, that was 2014 and this is 2015, or that was 2012, or that was 2004. We understand and accept the fact that this is a corporate ongoing entity, and the council, even with different faces and people at the table, carry contractual relationships with the community. So that's quite clear from that. So I think things have been a bit different since 2015 in terms of transparency and what's been shared, but obviously not enough. And we'll be looking into some of that as well from these questions. Is there anything at this point that councillors are thinking?
Is there anything that I could prepare for you or the councillors that like an abbreviated document?
I think this is pretty clear.
Okay.
And the statements are pretty straightforward. So unless staff saw things in the middle, no, I think it'll give us some good working points, and certainly we'll call for, and I'll say this now, a public response.
Okay.
That's
What does that,
necessary.
sorry, what does that mean, a public response?
Well, what I'm saying is we just won't hide this in another in-camera meeting. I mean, you've asked these questions publicly, so you deserve public responses. Now, you may not like all the responses, you may not agree with all the responses. That's probably a given what I've seen here. But you and the rest of the community, I think you pose questions that now a lot of people are going to want to know about. So we can respond to a lot of them. Some will simply probably say they're asking questions that can't be answered, but some of them we can, and we'll try and do that.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Now, we'll give an opportunity now for, it's about 7:45, and there was 6 or 7 other people that thought they'd like to speak, so we would have their perspective. And so I see Radine, if you'd like to come forward. And I recognize that 2 weeks ago I got your surname wrong, so if you could help me with the pronunciation of your surname, won't make that mistake again.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing to start out with, something I noticed here is
And
when
just for the record, can you let them
sorry.
know?
What?
Just your name.
Oh, Radine Pedno. I live at 6689 Gale Avenue North. I just want to say for the record as well, I asked if your legal counsel would be here last night, 2 weeks ago, and you told me no. He is here tonight, and that's fine. Just another one of the things that's troubling, that we're told things that aren't always the truth.
I don't think I ever said
You did. I asked
no.
it right here. Yeah. Anyways, just because I was curious, because I wanted to know what I would be confronting tonight. So, Mr. Mayor, when the sinkhole daylighted on the Stories property, I stood with you on Gale Avenue North, and you told me you would fix it. You looked me in the eyes and said, I will fix this. Clearly, that has not happened. Since that day, we've discovered documents and reports that were never made aware to us before the close of the purchase of our home. The 2013 Thurber report, as was mentioned earlier tonight, was among those documents. Since that report, 7 families purchased homes in our subdivision, but that report was not made public until after the sinkhole in February 2015. Recommended repairs were not carried out, and the roads and infrastructure in our subdivision has continued to suffer. We've sat for 2.5 years since that sinkhole that closed Gale Avenue North, and no repairs have been made. But the failing infrastructure continues to cause damage. How has this been allowed to happen? We are homeowners, plain and simple. We're not responsible or at fault for failing roads or infrastructure in our subdivision. And you know what? I'm angry, frankly. I'm angry that I have to explain to my kids why their friends had to leave. I'm angry that I have to lie awake sleeplessly when it rains at night, wondering what I'm going to wake up to the next day. I'm angry that for the past 2.5 years, this situation has been all-consuming for us. And all the while, we've had to send multiple letters and requests just to get this meeting tonight. We're regular people with careers and families, and you cannot even begin to imagine the stress of how this has been on our families. Aside from wondering what the district intentions are to remedy this situation, my biggest question tonight is how on earth this district could let this happen. And I have one other thing I'm going to read to you guys tonight. As some of you know, I have an 11-year-old son, and this has been really hard on our family and on my kids whose friends got sent out of our neighborhood, who don't understand why their road has cones on it, who are at home tonight because I have to be here, and I've been here multiple times in meeting all this week. Mom, can't you come to my thing? No, sorry, I have to go to the district to talk about this. We have to get together to put together documents. So I just want you guys to think about that. But my son looked at me in the car about 3 weeks ago and said, Mom, is there something I can do to help? He's 11. And I said, you could write a letter. And he said, well, who should I write this letter to? And then he looked at me and said, Mom, maybe I could write Mr. Trudeau and he would help. And I'm just going to read you what he wrote because these were his words. They're not my words. I edited some grammar, but that's it. And again, remember, these are the words of an 11-year-old about this situation that he's been living in. So he said, Dear Prime Minister Trudeau, my name is Grant Pedno. I'm 11 years old and live in Sechelt, BC. I speak both English and French. My great-uncle who passed away shared your last name, and I believe that he may have been related to your father. I believe that you may have visited the Sunshine Coast as a kid. There's one problem in my life that affects my family and me more than anything else. We have a sinkhole in our neighborhood. it affects us in many different ways. For example, we had a family with 3 kids in our neighborhood, and they were the only kids my age that lived here. Unfortunately, a sinkhole in their front yard caused by a district water pipe breakage caused them to have to leave. This was not the first sinkhole in our neighborhood. When we first arrived here 5 years ago, there was another sinkhole. The sinkhole also affects my life because my parents have to leave and go to district meetings more often, and they have less time to play with me. Also, for the last 2 years, the road has been closed, so we have to take a detour to our home. Even though the district knows that their broken pipes caused the sinkhole, they refuse to repair it. The district makes tons of geotechnical reports and tests on the sinkhole, but they never make any attempts to repair it. I feel sad about the sinkhole because we would not like another sinkhole to open up. We worry about having to move out of our house like the other family because we really like it here, and it would be sad to have to move out. Nothing has been done, and something must be done soon. Mr. Trudeau, please help us. So I just want you guys to think, and I know I've sat up here with you guys before and said, you know, I really want you to think about what your roles are here and what you can do personally. I understand that you're here representing the District of Seashelt right now, but I also know that many of you were on councils in the past when decisions we've alluded to tonight were made. And I feel really strongly that 1 or 2 of you could make a decision to stand up and do something to help us for this situation. This is not our fault in any way at all, and we sure have been treated like it is. Thank you.
Thank you for that and for reading your son's letter. Is there anyone else who would like to come forward and give us a sense to take with us as we try and organize our own thoughts on this? And again, it's just for the records and for the minutes of the meeting, if you can tell us who you are.
Hi, my name is Donna Goy. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I appreciate it. 4 years ago, my husband and I moved to Seashelt. We bought our home in Seawatch. We were excited for this next stage of our life to begin in this beautiful small town. When we bought our home in the spring of 2013, we did our due diligence before purchasing. We had questions about the sinkhole up on Seawatch Lane, but we were assured that this was being fixed. And indeed, that sinkhole did get fixed with satisfaction to the district. The District of Seashelt issued occupancy permit for our home. As new homeowners, we trusted that the district had been overseeing all the stages of construction, had performed regular inspections of our home and the development. We trusted the district had followed all the engineering recommendations throughout the development and any repairs that must have been made. This trust as a citizen is in no different than anyone should be expected from any municipality. The developer continued to receive building permits to build more homes. The district offered more occupancy permits, and those homes had people move into them. We had more neighborhoods. We were delighted. It was becoming a real home for us. In 2015, the sinkhole occurred. It occurred across the street from us. Our neighbors were told they had to move out of their home, and the district on our front lawn said, "We'll fix this." Drilling, testing occurred by the district's engineers. Well monitoring systems were installed. Missing and broken storm pipes were discovered, and the district closed our road. At first, it looked like the district cared and wanted to fix the road, and then all of a sudden it stopped. The lawyers and the district began to push us to sue. Since then, the families in our neighborhood have had to educate themselves on things that I never thought I would be aware of how to read a report, and struggle to get information from the district. We have found important reports that were never made available to us that the district had. One report which may have played a crucial role in us purchasing our home in the first place. Here we are 2.5 years later, and still no road fixed. We have to go through an obstacle course to get into our driveway. There's been more drilling, more road closures, and all due to the issues arising from not doing anything to fix the problem in the first place. My husband and I have requested several times to meet with the district to discuss the situation and what's been being done and what's going to happen, but no meeting was ever granted. It appears that only after our neighborhood made some public noise that we were finally offered a chance to have this meeting tonight. It saddens me to see how much stress our lives and the lives of our family, our friends, and our neighbors have endured over these years. I feel that I've been bullied, neglected, abused, and lied to. A municipal district, a body of power and trust for their citizens. The District of Seawatch has let me and my neighbors down. The same district who was put in the place to protect its citizens, oversee all the developments within the community, and ensure the municipal roads and infrastructures are maintained. The district I trusted with my largest investment, my home. I am embarrassed of the district and how the situation in our community has been handled. Finally, I hope that the District of Seawatch will do right by their citizens before anything else happens to us or any other resident who should live in this District of Seawatch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I just want to say we don't disagree with the expectations or many of the statements of value, but some of the things of fact we would disagree with. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Mr. Latham? Or Ms.? Okay, thanks. There's only one chair at the moment, but maybe Chris. Thanks, Chris. Chris will move back with the media for a minute. And again, even if known, if you don't mind letting the minute taker know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Greg Latham.
And I'm Jerry Latham.
We purchased our home at 6637 Gale Avenue North on September 5th in 2008 in the belief that DOS had completed the due diligence they were obligated to do in order for us to get an occupancy permit, which we received. With the advent of the sinkhole on Seawatch Lane in June 2012, we spent 5 years of our life dealing with issues in the Seawatch subdivision, culminating in tonight's meeting. We bought this as our last home and often have said that the only way we'll leave it is in a pine box. I was 62 when this started. I'm now 67. I do not want to be dealing with this issue when I'm in my 70s. So I want to talk about a couple of things that weren't on your board as to what's happened. The first one was there was a major in-camera meeting with this council in December 15th, 2015. The agenda included an outline of issues by yourself, Mayor Milne. We had the corporate capacity of the district explained to us in some detail about how there wasn't an ability to finance any of the repairs by Paul Hildebrand. We were given a course on litigation by John Singleton, who is the lawyer acting for the MIA, the Municipal Insurance Association. And we also received an update through their assistant claims manager, David Tupper from the Municipal Insurance Agency. We had the opportunity to ask some questions, make some comments, and we had some conversations around next steps. Residents of Seawatch were obviously in attendance. And I'd like to just summarize a couple of the key takeaways from that meeting for the public record. One, we were advised DOS is unable to fund repairs. Two, Repair costs are not covered under the Municipal Insurance Association. 3, work required on private land is not known and would have to be paid for by owners if it was required. 4, District of Sechelt lacks the legal power to implement abandonment and the financial power to implement repairs. And I would remind the council that the feedback that we had prior to coming into that meeting was that abandonment was being considered. 5, the District of Sechelt may consider abandonment of the roads and sewers if a buyout or repair solution is not reached within a reasonable time. 6, buyouts or repairs are unlikely to occur unless and until owners sue. 7, John Singleton, the lawyer for MIA, advised that he would hire an internationally renowned geotechnical expert to review the Seawatch subdivision geotechnical studies for a third time that have been completed and at some point make the findings public. 8, DOS committed to make a decision on the Seawatch subdivision early in the new year. On January 26, 2006, we were further advised that John Singleton, lawyer for MIA, would be commissioning a further risk assessment of the Seawatch subdivision. All right, what's happened since 2015? December 15, 2015. Number 1, Dr. Norbert Morgenstern, MIA's renowned geotechnical expert, completed his work in early 2016. However, this report's not been made public. However, it's been made available to you. 2, District of Sechelt has not completed any of the repairs to fix the Seawatch subdivision as recommended several times to the reports they have commissioned. 3, as of today's date, DOS have not made a decision which they have announced publicly. 4, the comprehensive risk assessment has been abandoned after the Seawatch plaintiffs, and there was just a few of us, declined to financially make commitments to share in the funding of it. I quote from an August 24, 2016 email from our lawyer. I write to advise that we have not received a follow-up email from, that we have received a follow-up email from the district concerning cost sharing on the risk assessment. The district advises that the cost to prepare the risk assessment plan is $20,000 to $25,000. The cost to undertake the risk assessment itself is unknown. Mr. Singleton has previously advised via phone that it could stretch into the millions, end quote. The situation has continued to deteriorate since December 15, 2015, and I'm just going to add a few more comments to the ones that Rod put forward with respect to the July report. Before I do that, I would indicate that there was a report that you received in October from Thurber. There was a report you received in in January from Thurber. None of these were made available. Those reports recommended that the drilling that we were finally told was going to be done was sent to us in an email by Andrew in June, and then we saw that that was done, and then we received the July 11 report. So there is an issue of documentation coming to you that we had typically been given before that we didn't even know happened. It warns you clearly of what you found after you did the drillings, and we had received them in June, I should say. Okay, so what I want to say, the July 11th report from Thurber concludes the following points. Sinkholes continue to develop on the site. The current passive groundwater management strategy employed by the district and others is inadequate. 2, and this is a point that I think is really critical. The unmanaged spring northwest of the Lot 3 seepage mitigation measures, if you recall, part of the fix for dealing with the sinkhole in Seawatch Lane was putting a mitigation measure on Lot 3. I'll come back to that in just a second. There's the unmanaged spring next to that was discovered in 2015. You guys were made aware of it. And they have included that it could develop into a large seepage blowout, which could result in accelerated surface erosion and sinkholes. First we found out about that, didn't know there was a spring. Another one. And I think the most serious statement, and it needs to be stated publicly, that was in that document that they concluded, quote, without addressing the concerns outlined in this memorandum and our other previous correspondence, the site will experience another sinkhole in the near future, affecting underground utilities, roads, or sidewalks, or private property, including buildings and retaining walls. Injury or even death is a possible consequence. That report was in your hand July 11th. It was sent to us by the engineer. We tried to get an explanation from your engineer. He deferred us to you, and yet you are meeting us now 2 months later for the first time. And we are not getting you to talk about what's in the report. You're just listening to us regurgitating back to you what you already had in front of you. I want to go on with the Thurber report because there's very explicit recommendations in it. Proactive ground management, water management is strongly recommended to mitigate ongoing erosion, which has resulted in sinkholes at the site. They've talked about site dewatering. I won't get into the details, but we know what that's about. 2, fix Lot 3 seepage mitigation works in the spring adjacent to the northwest, which has been recommended by the engineer of record, Golder Engineering, since June 23rd, 2015. Noting that in our opinion, this is a direct quote, this is a very important quote, these issues may be partly responsible for reinitiating the sinkholes on Lot 9, and for clarity, that's a house that the developer owns and never was occupied, and Lot 21, which is the Stories home, and the 2 newly formed sinkholes on Gale Avenue, below Vincent Carey's place and in front of the Goys and the Moridens' place. Inspect and maintain buried lines, noting inspection was completed in the first week of July 2017. However, a report has not been released. Perhaps it's not in yet. Reduce infiltration of precipitation in surface water. 5, groundwater monitoring. And 6, and here it comes again, comprehensive site-wide sinkhole investigation. Note this has been recommended in every engineer report commissioned by DOS. 7, geotechnical assessments of neighboring developments to the south and southeast before development. In your interview with the Coast Reporter, you indicated that you weren't worried about that weren't going to be dealing with that at this time, and you also indicated that the road into the Goys and the Brian's place was safe, and that's in the absence of knowing what the results of the utility assessment were. Anyhow, I just want to, other people have said this, after numerous written requests from Seawatch residents, DOS refused to meet until September 6th, when several frustrated residents made their concerns known, and here we are today.
Good evening. I want to take us on the Latham journey.
That's a scary thought.
Our investment, BC property assessment and market value for property has gone up significantly. I'd say 25 to 30% in the last few years. However, the independent appraiser of our property has concluded that our property has been rendered to virtually nil because of the community situation. Thus, we have a property that has no value. We have been advised by reputable realtors on the coast that they will not list our home. Or if listed, they will certainly not bring clients to see it. This situation has and continues to create considerable stress for us and our future. We hear the word class action. That started right at the very beginning in the December meeting. The mayor has on numerous occasions advised the residents to submit a claim through a class action. The legal advice received by us is that it does not make sense to proceed with these claims as a class action due to the following. 1, the small number of persons involved. 2, the complexity of the issues. 3, the potentially differing interests of different owners. 4, the uncertainty in terms of how other defendants might react to the proposal. And 5, 16 of the 29 lots in the current Seawatch subdivision are owned by the developer, who is currently suing the district and is being sued by the district. This information was shared with John Singleton, lawyer for MIA, representing the district, on December 7th, 2015. Despite this, in every media article and every discussion related to the Seawatch subdivision, the mayor continues to state class action is the only solution. Given everything we heard, Greg and I, we made a very difficult decision to proceed, to file a statement of claim in December of 2015, 2 weeks after the December meeting, and to serve it in March of 2016, which was part of the timeline. Total legal fees paid were in the thousands. The defendant's lawyers, representing virtually every major legal firm in Vancouver, and in fact the judge joked about that, were in court just over a year ago, when the trial date was set for October 2nd, 2018, for 100 days.
Sorry, that wasn't a mistake. 100 days.
2 Seashell plaintiffs discontinued their lawsuit. Totally unaffordable, with no defined outcome. The MIA lawyer indicated to our lawyer that they might be interested in a possible settlement. So we directed our lawyer to have that conversation. After 3 months and several thousands of dollars later, they declined to pursue a possible settlement. As we have no physical damage to our home or to our property, we just live in Seawatch community. We have no claim. Thus, our lawyer advised us to file a discontinuation. Every defendant agreed to discontinuance except the district and the MIA, who wanted us to agree to a full signed indemnity for the district, or for us to pay their full legal costs to date. Our lawyer, Greg, and I were appalled. You tell us to take you to court, and then you ask us to pay your legal fees. We advised that we were going to the media. Well, the district and the MIA accepted our discontinuance at that point in time. There's a small point of irony here that I want to point out, and it's been mentioned several times tonight. On October 17th, 2012, the lawyer for the district council informed Concordia by registered mail, and I quote, and there were 3 of you on council at that time, the District of Seashell resolved to impose remedial action requirements on Concordia Seawatch Limited and to demand that Concordia Seawatch Limited comply with the requirements set out in the resolution under the terms of the servicing agreement and covenant. Later, the District of Seashell rescinded the remedial action requirements. In a letter on March 14th, 2013, Concordia Seawatch Limited lawyer wrote to the district lawyer, and I quote, he states this was due to avoid the risk inherent in extremely complex and expensive litigation. The alternative is a lawsuit which will wind its way through the courts for years, and in Concordia's opinion, will diminish the values of the properties of the existing homeowners and the district's own tax base. It will also allow the project to be advanced without further delay. Thus, the burden of this extremely complex and expensive litigation has been now passed on to us in the community to prove liability.
Can I just add one point?
No.
Just take 1 second. In between the time We sat in the same chamber. I think I was sitting here at this exact table in an in-camera session with several of you who were on the council. You might remember that. We asked for a meeting. And the reason we asked for the meeting was for exactly the same reason why we're here today, is because you weren't listening to what we were saying. We weren't being told what was going to happen. We came in here. Like today, there was no comment made. We did our presentation. We handed out copies to everybody in the room, and I see those of you who were there are nodding your head. Less than a week later, we heard through the grapevine that this deal had been cut with the developer for the reasons Jerry just mentioned. We were never told about it. We got called into a quick meeting here, Mike and I, to be told by the mayor that we've cut an arrangement and we'll tell you about it later. And that was how this was dealt with. So today we sit here. It was okay not to deal with your legal issues with the developer, yet today you're in a suit with them. And in addition, 14 people are potentially in a suit with you, and you're telling us it's the only way to move forward. Yet you didn't want to do that with the developer then, but it's okay to do it with us now. Jerry, sorry.
Since we have purchased our home, we have put our hearts and souls into our home, our property, our community, and the Sunshine Coast through our engagement and volunteerism. Our request today is an immediate resolution to the situation, so we may get on with our lives without this huge stress, insecurity, and financial burden hanging over our heads. Please note, and I hate to say this publicly, but I'm going to, we are senior citizens.
Speak for yourself.
On a fixed income, and we have put a huge investment into our home. We believe from everything we have heard and read that there's only possibly two options. Number one, to have the District of Sechelt commit to a complete, full fix of the Seawatch subdivision issues, which we have been formally requesting since July 2012. If you cannot fix Seawatch, to have the district commit to a settlement that is reflective of fair market value of our homes. Greg and I are saying this. I'm not speaking on behalf of our community. Please understand that. In closing, I remind you of Mayor Milne's statement, September 6th, 2017, 2 weeks ago. This is a tragedy. The residents of Seawatch are in a situation which is not of their own making, and they are not at fault. So, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, do the right thing and resolve this issue. Or, alternatively, as Mr. Gleason so correctly said in the Coast Reporter, we all are waiting for Seawatch to sink. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Those are powerful statements, and not much can follow, but Mr. and Mrs. Story.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
we cannot hear the comments, please.
Sorry, I just commented that those were powerful statements, and I didn't know if anything could follow, but Ross and Aaron will.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ross Story.
And I'm Erin Story, and we're the owners of 6657 Gale Avenue North. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Myself and my wife, Erin, along with our children, Joffrey, Bryn, and Callum, used to reside on Lot 21 in the Seawatch development. We bought this house in 2010 as our dream home, where we plan to raise our family, enjoy the ocean lifestyle for many years. However, our dream home quickly became our house of nightmares when on February 26, 2015, we awoke to find that a massive sinkhole had appeared on our property and another smaller sinkhole had appeared directly across the street on Lot 9. That same day, the district prohibited access to our home and property and closed down portions of Gale Avenue North. As you can imagine, we were devastated that we were forced to move from our home. It was an extremely unsettling, stressful, and emotional time for our whole family.
We have not returned to the home since, except to remove personal belongings and to document the continuing damage to our home and our property. For 2.5 years, we have borne the burden of paying for 2 separate residences, one of which is uninhabitable. We've been denied coverage from the insurers, including the new home warranty provider, and no assistance from any level of government has been offered to help us financially or even to help us find temporary housing during the time we were displaced. Thankfully, we have amazing support of friends and family who helped us through this difficult time. To date, we are out of pocket hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we expect that our costs will increase exponentially as we prepare for our court date in 2018.
We agree with our former neighbors that the district and other parties failed in their responsibilities during design and construction of this development. And the district and other responsible parties have not taken steps to implement the Thurber recommended repairs. We disagree, however, with their proposed course of action. It is our respectful position that our home and property is not and cannot ever be made safe, no matter what the cost. If our former neighbors wish to remain in their homes, that is their choice. However, we are not prepared to accept any repair-based solution. In our view, the only viable option is for the district and others to buy out our home and our property. We recognize that the district and others are still investigating the geotechnical issues. However, we feel strongly that these investigations should not detract from the need to achieve a just and fair resolution of our claims against the district and others. Thank you for taking our time to hear our comments.
Thank you.
Thank you for... And thank you and others for being strong enough to come and tell us directly what the experience has been and what your feelings and thinkings are. I suspect that's most. I'm just looking to see if there was anyone else from that residence or from the other communities that would like to say a word, and then I'll look to councillors to respond briefly in terms of their. Mr. Pattison.
My name's Mike Pattison. We're still in litigation with the District of Seawatch, and I probably shouldn't be saying anything, but there's just 2 things I wanted to say. One thing the stories didn't mention is the cost. The Lathams referred to it. They said several $1,000s. In my estimate, there has been close to $250,000 spent by residents of Seawatch to this point in time. I'm just going by what we have spent. $250,000. I think most of the problems could be fixed by that $250,000. I know the district has more than one estimate and are looking for more, and I don't think they match the reports you have, so I urge you to do that. And if you don't do that, I have one thing to say. Shame on you.
Thanks. Were you wanting to speak again?
Yes. I've just been taking some notes here, and you have been challenging some of the facts that have been stated here and saying that you disagree with them, and that's your prerogative. There's been a lot of other issues that I personally wanted to bring up tonight. And in the interest of some of the people that are still in litigation, I decided not to, but a few things need to be said.
Okay.
One is the agreement, the settlement agreement that was reached in 2013. That agreement was rushed through the council meeting within 1 day of reaching you, and it was approved, rescinding a remedial work action based on a Turber's report outlined in 2000, going from 2008 to 2012, that would have costed the developer in the millions. It probably would have rendered that entire development unaffordable. Things were in there that they could have never been fixed. You would have literally had to go there and bulldoze half the houses on the other side of Gale Avenue to be able to fix the drainage system and things that were missing. And that was rushed through the council, knowing fair well that the district had requested a detailed report to be prepared by Turber. That resolution was passed on the 25th of March. Turber report came out on April 5th. That Turber report was never released to the public until you were elected in 2014, and it was given to us in 2015. Instead, the report that was allowed to be circulated was a report by Golder, which was substantially different than the report from Turber. The difference is that the Turber report showed that my house is sitting on a lake. The Golder report said, no, it's totally fine. Those are the differences. So you need to go and ask yourselves as why the district kept that report secret and why wasn't it released to the public. I am certain if that report was released to the public, when it came out on April the 5th, the local newspapers would have criticized the decision of this council, and perhaps certain things would have been done then. Your decisions, this council's decisions, this district decisions to approve this development initially, perhaps it was within the OCP, it was within the rights of the developer. But when the development started taking place, your approvals, the approvals of the district, the people were not qualified enough to deal with all of the water mitigation systems that were being proposed. And this municipality should have gone out there and sought expertise, help from experts to deal with it. They didn't, and that is okay. But once the development was underway, and as you all know, I'm involved in this community in development, and I deal with a lot of people, and I've been exposed to a lot of conversations that take place on my site from different people who work for me. People have been telling me that the water was gushing out on the side of the road. Half the hillside was washed out, and he had to walk out of there before he was washed out into the ocean. They're telling me that there has been a creek going across Gale Avenue in the approximate location of Lot 22 going across to Lot 9. I have got reports, which I provided to you, dating back to 1992, done by Terra Engineering, witnessing the creek going across Gale Avenue with pipes being put in there. Where is that creek? Did you know there was a creek? Where is the creek? What happened to the creek? Did the district follow the RAR, riparian assessment? Did you go out there and find out if that creek could have been covered up. There was a realignment of Croston Road. The Croston Road that we know today was not built that way. That was realigned. There was a sediment pond on the bottom of Croston Road at the approximate location of the 2012 sinkhole. What happened to the sediment pond? What happened to the Croston ditch? Because where it's going now, it wasn't where it was before. What happened to all the warnings that came from people? I mean, I'm hearing people just going to the local pub that they were talking about all the issues at Seawatch. I'm hearing from contractors who worked on the Seawatch that were being asked to put foundations in where they were asking, where is the geotechnical reports? And they were saying, oh, don't worry about it. I'm being told by people that this entire development, there was no oversight. I've been told by people that they saw during the construction, the very same pipe that is the question that we have not been able to find that runs between lot 9 and lot 10, that was broken. And they're looking at it, trying to fix it. The same pipe that we can't find today. How this happened? Why so much lack of oversight? I've got an answer for you. When you go out there trying to protect and trying to put fancy legal language into documents, trying to avoid responsibility and everything else, and your people see that, your staff sees that and everything else, that's where the lack of care comes in. There is no accountability. How are they going to be held accountable? How are you going to be held accountable? Okay, it's somebody else's problem. Never going to come back and haunt us. Well, this one did. And it will continue to haunt you. This district and the people who work for this district and represent the people of this community must do their jobs right, must care, regardless of what the legal language is. You have to perform your duties with integrity. Some of you were there when these decisions were taking place, and you do need to take responsibility for them. You're talking about the settlement agreement. I mean, why was it rushed? What was the reason? Why this district is always scared of being sued? It's just part of the course of business. Okay? People do wrong things, they sue each other. Okay? Why go and make a settlement for the sake of getting $75,000 worth of legal fees back and $12,000 worth of sand in a hole? When you have got $2 to $3 million worth of remedial work action that you have authorized. How did you justify that? How can you justify that without going to the public? I mean, at this point in time, I look at it and say, you had so many warnings. You could have shut this entire thing down in 2006, 2007, 2008, when you had the reports coming in about the events that were taking place at this site. Mr. Inkster, you were the mayor at the time when these stuff were good. 2008 to 2011?
Yes, but you referred to these 3 years.
No, 2008 to 2011, you were the mayor, okay? Were you aware of any of these? You know, things have been let go for so long. 2015, there was a repair suggested at a cost of approximately $280,000. I was challenged by this council here 2 weeks ago that work could have been done probably for less than $150,000, okay? Something is broken. The pipe is broken. That water is going somewhere and it's not going through that pipe. We all know that. There may be bigger problems, bigger issues that needs to be fixed. We may or may not be able to fix them. We may not have the budget, the money, resources to do that right now. But that single pipe is the cause of what has happened to the extension of the problems on Gale Avenue in front of my house and Rod's house. I have a geotechnical report peer review that says that.
Could you share
that
that with
confirms
us?
that.
Could you share that with us?
Well, we can probably share that with you, but I need to discuss that with our lawyer now.
Good.
Things have escalated. Things have changed. This problem is not a problem that can be solved legally. This community needs to come together and accept responsibility for their errors and the mistakes. And you have to make it right. You have to make it right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you.
Mayor Milne, just, you said, could he provide that report? Thurber's report says that, Urban's report says that, Webb Engineering's report says that, and there's one other report out there that says that. I can't remember. There's so many reports. Yeah. So you told me last council meeting that you'd read all these reports.
And I'll say categorically that I think the reports do not say what you're claiming. Okay, we have looked at those reports, and we've read the reports.
Quote those reports.
Mayor Milne, would you like to read the last paragraph in the 2017 July 11th? I think that summarizes it all. I don't know why are you denying it. I mean, there are reports after reports, geotechnical after geotechnical. They all say the same thing.
We're all well aware of that paragraph, and it was once on the agenda for tonight, and you've quoted it in other letters. So unless there's others that would like to speak, I think the meeting sounds like it's degenerating. And
It's not degenerating. Can you give us something?
I was prepared to look to council. But before that's happened, we've had a lot of other stuff going on. So, Mr. Pattison.
So I think maybe some people would like to hear what that statement was by Thurber, who probably, what would you say their bill is up to now? About $750,000 over the years that we've spent on Thurber here. That people have seen. When I say we, I mean the people at Seashell. This is what they said. The risk of sinkhole collapse is difficult to predict. Without addressing the concerns outlined in this memorandum, and our previous correspondence, the site will likely experience another sinkhole collapse in the near term. Future sinkholes could affect existing infrastructure such as underground utilities, roads and sidewalks, or private property, including buildings and retaining walls. Injury or even death is a possible consequence if conditions continue to deteriorate. Lack of action will likely result in access to lots 7 and 8 being cut off in the relatively near future. As such, and that's Chris's house and Rod's house, Donna's house and Joanna's house. We strongly encourage all stakeholders to proactively address the problems at the site. We trust that this is sufficient for your present needs. Please contact us if you have any questions. And I encourage everybody here to look at this agenda, click on that link, and there's just a small sample of the reports there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's 20 to 9. I'm going to give a few minutes for council to gather their thoughts and see if they'd like to make a few comments just in response to what they've heard, and then I'll try and summarize a few things on our way to closing the meeting. And I suspect at quarter to 9, our legal counsel is going to leave because he has to catch a ferry. That's fine. It's all on YouTube. You can watch it on the ferry. It's difficult for councillors to be in a position to comment directly. There's a lot of information that's come through tonight. Some we know of, some we may not. Some we accept that the district is a continuing corporation. It's acted for since 2004 on this issue, and it's clear that this council and some of the members are only aware of what's occurred since 2014, 2015. And I'd heard a couple of comments in terms of reports that were or were not released in October through to January of 2016, January 2017, that may have slipped, and I want to look into why those weren't available, because there is one thing I do recall saying very clearly in our very first meeting in this room with Mr. Beamish, and it was Mr. Beamish being our CAO at the time, was that we would be transparent. We would share all of the reports that we got with the residents and with the community, so you would be as informed as we are. I think we've done that, but it sounds like we slipped on October of 2016 and into January, and I'll have to find out why that was and what happened. And I also said that we would look for a comprehensive solution for the site, that we would not be looking at stopgap measures, and we would try to learn from what had been done in the past, both from previous council and right back to when it was first approved. We would try and learn from that, and one thing we had learned was that this was a complicated but integrated site, that the groundwater flows, the sinkholes, don't respect private property lines or public property lines, that it's mixed. And in many ways, we're all in this. And I didn't say this at the time, but in the last 2 years, I've learned that we're in fact in this very much together. There are public infrastructure that are impacted by sinkholes, and there's private infrastructure that's impacted. And the solution to date for this council has not been found. We are looking at it within our policy structures. We're looking at it in terms of making sure that it fits in terms of our asset management, our repairs, our duty of care, and our financial abilities. And we're not, I can say with certainty, we're not ignoring it. We will look at the various questions that came in the first presentation and in the others, and we'll try and get back on all of those that we can. And we still, words that were quoted earlier, that it was a tragedy, remains top of our minds. We know that it's difficult for individuals there, and I know that you've spent many more sleepless nights than anyone on this side of the table has. But you also have to know that we have also taken it really seriously, and we're continuing to do that. There are councillors that want to say anything, and Councillor Lutz.
Thank you. I have to say thank you to everyone who's spoken. It's difficult when you're emotional about something. I have been looking at this file since 2008 when I was first elected, and it is very complicated for all of us, not just for the homeowners. It's complicated for the whole community. And the whole community is, I think it's important that this meeting tonight has been made public so that the community can also have some input. So thank you for what you've done tonight.
Thank you, Alice. And Councillor Shanks.
Yes, thank you very much for everybody who attended this evening and put forward submissions. There's a lot of information that I've gleaned from this that I wasn't aware of in terms of reports that I'm not sure we've received, and you most definitely apparently haven't received. I don't want you to think that this is not a compassionate council. I've been on council for many years, and this is probably the hardest and most difficult issue I've had to deal with. And I do appreciate the fact that all of you have come and appeared before us in a respectful manner. And I think if we go over the information that has been provided to us, I think the mayor has indicated there will be likely a public response to some of those questions that have arisen this evening. And so thank you very much again.
I want to thank you and say the only thing that's lacking is our ability to respond as directly as some of us would like to, because this case is still unfolding and there's a ton at risk for everybody in this room. Taxpayers, community, residents.
Everywhere in Seashell, how can anybody trust any of you anymore to do anything the right way? Ray Barfoot called that place years ago one of the dirtiest subdivisions he ever saw, because every time it rained, it just sluiced water down into the inlet and floated a clam bed. It went halfway across the inlet. You could watch it from the other side on a logging road. So, you know, be contrite, whatever. How can we trust you?
We'll work on that. It's the key element in the community being together and on your relationship with government. I think about trust on a daily basis, and I know it's been broken on this one. I'm aware of that. Radine?
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure.
Came up with transparency.
Yeah.
So this hasn't been mentioned, but we've been fighting an FOI request with this council for a year and a half to get documents related to Seawatch. We've asked and we've asked and we've asked and we've asked, and I think it's now at ministerial inquest. What I just want to inquiry, sorry, and when it was finally released to us, and as everybody knows, FOI requests are supposed to be done within 30 days, and you ask for extension after extension after extension, so we could get some idea of what's gone on in our subdivision. We got a couple of some documents. We're still waiting for a bunch more, and just so people here know, the district has asked that we pay $2,000 for those documents, which is why it's gone to ministerial inquiry.
Okay.
And I just don't understand why you wouldn't just release them at this point. To be honest with you, we've asked and we've asked.
Okay.
It's the same thing with asking for meetings, with sending documents. Mr. Simon's letter gets put into correspondence. Ours over this long haul haven't. Really, it just seems really unfair. You have the opportunity in some cases to make decisions that would cause us to suffer less, and you have not done that.
On freedom of information and access to documents, I've instructed staff since the election to be as open and free with documents that are public as we can possibly be. On freedom of information requests specifically, councils and the mayor are never made aware of what those are or the process for very obvious reasons. You don't want political decision-making on freedom of information. It's almost always because you want information and you don't want politicians so I actually don't know what's gone on there, but the instructions for staff have always been to release what's available. And Ms. Coy.
Just a question. We had our last report, the third report that came out, which is done July, that
Yes.
was after some drilling that happened in front of our home, which we kind of questioned council on before that drilling started, because we weren't sure if that was going to affect more problems in our house. No response was given by the district. When those drilling phones went out in our front yard at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon, we didn't have anybody tell us what was going on, why we all of a sudden had to do this sneeze into our house. Did get some response. Questions on that report. Was asked by several other people in our neighborhood, and I wrote an email and asked very nicely to Mr. Snapp, please send us the information. It's in front of my house. I don't know what's safe. The report came. Inside there was all these memorandums that were not attached. They were purposely not given to us until we had to ask, not just once, but 5 people had to ask for that rest of that report. And finally, when I asked again, it came. So open transparency is not happening.
I accept there's organizational failures.
Is it really just an organizational failure, though? And you know what? I just want to speak to this brief. Just this one thing about the cones. None of you live there. Have any of you seen it? Have you driven through and seen the cones?
Yes.
Because what you did to us on that Friday night was disgusting, and I said it before and I mean it. You came in and you plunked down cones. You had not an apology, not in anything about it. I can't even believe it. Go there and look at it if you haven't, because it's still there, although the paint is washed off, so you can't really tell where you can and can't walk down because a lot of the paint is washed off. But I hope you go there and look at it, because remember, you're dealing with people, and it is not our fault.
The lack of respect is really appalling. It's really appalling.
Okay, and this gentleman's been wanting to speak.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, a little out of order here.
It's okay.
Asked for questions earlier. However, I want to draw back to me, when it's a fundamental issue. I'm a grandparent. I'm a papa of a child, of 2 children that live in the subdivision. I've had many sleepless nights recently since the rains coming down. I worry about you now. But I draw you back to a very fundamental thing here. The Thurber report makes this statement, and it's been read several times tonight, but I draw it back to you because you made the comment that we got other business in the district that needs to be attended to. I'll just be real brief here. The statement from Thurber says again, the site will likely experience another sinkhole collapse in the near term. Future sinkholes could affect existing infrastructure such as underground utility roads or sidewalks or private buildings, including retaining walls. Injury or even death is a consequence. Now, if you're telling me that your council is sitting here and has business more important than the threat of injury and death to its citizens, I'm perplexed. So I would like a clarification on that, please, to start. I've got one other very brief question to ask.
We're fully aware of that report and what it says, and we hope the residents are as well.
We're humanity. We're people with lives. So you're putting these other issues, I'm sorry for raising my voice, above the safety. I read the charter for municipalities. I don't know if you have. I've gone through the guidelines that are put down for you people. And the whole control over letting a subdivision develop is your responsibility. It has a massive power that's been given to you people to do that. And now you're telling me you're okay with the threat of injury and possibly death to my grandkids and my family and the neighbors that live in their neighborhood. I'm sorry, I have problems with that.
There's nothing I can say. Just Jerry and then Chris.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to raise the issue, and you both do have to. Could you clarify what the hell you mean by that? You said it in the newspaper, you said it again to us tonight. What does that mean? We've read it. We're concerned. So what do you interpret that we should do as a result of your statement? Can you be clearer? Because you sure as hell haven't been tonight. You said it 3 times. I'd really like to hear your answer. If you're not prepared to do it now, I suspect you should get back to us in short order.
Okay. I'll have to get back to you. I'm just not sure what I can say here. I know that it's been a topic of conversation with all of us.
You said,
I know.
the road is safe. Counter to exactly what's being said, you know that they've done additional piping reviews under that road. And I don't know if you've got those reports yet. If you have, they should be made public to us immediately. They should have been made public by the time it happened. And we expect that there's further deterioration after a year because they were in very poor shape last year. So let's get it out and be clear what we mean by it. What do you expect us to do in response to it?
We're monitoring all the public property on a regular basis, and we're assessing the safety of the public property and the roads that we have. We're doing that.
No one's monitored the wells that you guys spent a whole bunch of money on forever. I don't know what the heck.
It's my understanding that there's regular assessments and monitoring of all of that material.
You don't live there, nobody's been there.
So just one person speaking at a time, if you don't mind, and Chris has been waiting after Jerry spoke. And we really need people to come to the microphone. Chris, if you don't mind, yeah, just so we can have enough order so there's one person at a time.
You mentioned that you're doing the monitoring, but what's there to monitor? You have got broken pipes in the ground. You know the sanitary sewer is leaking. You know the storm sewer is broken. You know you got rocks in your pipes. What is there to monitor? You just need to come over there and dig out the road and fix what you know is broken while you are going through the process of trying to figure out the bigger problem. Earlier on, you mentioned that this may need to be a judiciary resolve. How about a public inquiry to why we are here tonight? As to the decisions that have been made by this district, their staff, their people. Why put everybody through having to go through lawsuits and invest all this money trying to fight, as well said, probably every single big law firm in the city with no resolve, when you guys have created this problem? Call for a judiciary inquiry, okay? Do an inquiry and find out what went wrong. And if you're found guilty at the end of it, take responsibility and deal with it. And if you don't have the money, go find it. Go borrow it. Go get it from the provincial government. Beg and plead from the federal government. Do exactly what I do every single day in my business. Take responsibility for my actions. I make a mistake, I'll fix it. I'll go find the money. You need to do exactly the same thing. It's no different.
Thank you for your advice.
Thank you.
Sir.
Sorry, I did say I had one other question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
got a little emotional there.
Understandable. I understand.
I hope you understand.
I do. So,
Here's my question. I happen to do some research into this. I happen to find out that there's provincial emergency funds and federal emergency funds available to municipalities to deal with emergencies. My question to you is, have you sought out that support? And I guess the next part of it that should be first, do you agree that this is an emergency? Two questions. Could I get an answer, please?
yes, on both of them. We have sought federal provincial emergency support from day one in February of 2015. That was our first response, was to look to the provincial emergency program, and it doesn't fit their program criteria.
Can you send us the paperwork on that, please? Because
Sure.
can you forward that to us, please?
I think we can look for it, and if it's available, we can send it. But Mr. Beamish and I, look,
If you have asked for it, it must be available. How is it not available? If you have asked a question, if you have written to them, if you have had the conversation with them, how can that possibly not be available? This is the story of this district, okay? Not on just this issue. I deal with this district
I'm
on a
asking
daily
people
basis.
to try and speak one at a time and not to just be jumping through this. So we got somebody standing behind you, Chris. I know it's difficult. I know you're all impatient, but we really want to try and keep the meeting as ordered as we can. It's difficult for everybody in the room. Ms. Goy, yeah,
A couple of my feelings.
sure.
I'm feeling bullied. I'm feeling neglected, abused, and lied to by the party of power of the district municipality.
Chris, did you, anything more to add?
You're talking about me being impatient. It's taken me 2.5 years to come to this point of dealing with this. I've had to listen to my neighbors, see them cry, see them being upset, okay? Almost every weekend, every single weekend. And I've had to tell them the sad thing. There is no resolve with these lawyers. They are going to waste your money. They're going to waste your time. They're going to drag you over years and years. And as soon as you've got a date to go to court, you're going to find out that it's going to be horrendously expensive to even get to see the opportunity or the date that you're gonna be able to go to court, and then they're gonna drag it again. The October 18th, 2018 is gonna change because 42 parties are involved. Every single one of them are gonna wait till October 17th, and they're gonna serve you with notices, each and every one of them asking for extension, 1 month here, 2 months there, 3 months there, 3 months there, and it will be 5-6 years before you get there. They do that because that's how it's done. You will get exhausted. You are not going to be able to afford it. You're going to drop it. And that's what's going to happen. And that's what the municipal insurance lawyers are doing. That's what every other lawyer are doing. And that is exactly why this council, you need to go home tonight, you need to think about it and say, we have done wrong. This community has done wrong. We need to accept responsibility and we need to make it right. And we need to go and figure out what we need to do in order to make it right. And that is what needs to be done. There is nothing else to be done.
Okay, any final comments? Final, and then we're going
I
to
would like to know
adjourn.
what's going to happen when you guys change hands in October 2018 and pass this on to the next council and the next council and the next council. Thank you.
And the next engineer, and the next.
Good question.
And the next CAO, and the next CAO.
We accept responsibility. We will, and we're working on it. I know that you don't agree with that.
What does that mean by accepting responsibility? Are you publicly announcing that you're actually taking responsibility for the mistakes and errors of the district with regard to what has happened at Seawatch, and you are going to make it right? Is that what it means by
Don't
taking
put words in my mouth, and don't.
I'm not. I'm just asking.
And don't shift the tone of this meeting quite the way you are. We have a representative from Nicholas Simons here tonight. If you just want to say a word. Yeah.
Thank you. I just have one quick question. Is there an estimate, if you brought it back to the standard it should have been in the first place, do you have an estimate of those costs? What are we looking at?
Various comprehensive estimates with no certainty that it will be, in fact, safe, are in the $10 million range, and they don't give any certainty.
Is there anywhere that's safe? Thank you. Or
has
certainty?
Mr. Goy and then Mr. Pattison.
Thank you. So there is a range of estimates.
Yes.
And each with them bring a scope of different work. So I think we need to be more accurate with the response to Mr. Simon's office, what the low range is and what the high range is. Also, I've heard you say and state in the newspaper with no amount of certainty. If you were to look at construction benchmarks made by engineers, take what we consider to be sort of the ultimate in terms of consultation and how things should be done. It sounds to me like, well, I know it doesn't sound to me, I know for a fact the benchmarks of certainty that engineers provide are much less than the statement that says with unknown certainty. It makes it sound like you're looking for 100% guarantee on issues that professionals would never issue. Never. And I think what you need to do is look at the benchmarks in the professional community of consulting and engineering and kind of adopt that as your own. And make sure that when you state things publicly, that it accurately reflects what the industry and what the benchmarks are. Because it's kind of it's a non-committal fallback statement that you allow yourself to make that sounds like, you know, we need to provide 100% certainty that the public's not going to fall into a sinkhole. Well, why would you make that statement when the engineering and the construction community don't?
I hear what you're saying. I don't think we're looking for 100% certainty. We're looking for prudent and financially responsible decisions. Mr. Pattison.
This all started last council meeting, I think Chris was saying you won't meet with us. Why, we've had this public meeting now.
Yes.
Why don't you sit down and meet with us? Why don't you have your engineers sit down and meet with us? Because there's a brain trust in our community that goes back 5 years. I don't even care if the developer's there. We know what's going on there. Yes, there's some geotechnical issues, but there's a lot of things that can be fixed easily. And I don't think you guys understand that. You're not paid to understand that. Your staff is paid to understand that. How can they understand that when they've been on the job for 4 or 5 months? You told us at that meeting that Mr. Yates was well aware of all the problems, yet he gave us a very good presentation. I know he doesn't have a lot of time to put things like that together, but it's certainly not the kind of detail we can give you.
It was,
He hasn't been here.
it was only meant to get the meeting going.
Good.
Don't blame him for the presentation.
Will you meet with us?
Not on the conditions and terms that you're expecting. We can't do
Dad.
that. We simply can't do that.
Why not?
The last mayor could.
Last mayor could do all sorts of
Can you
things
say
that I
why
can't do.
not? Can you let us know why not? Why not?
The risks are just simply too high that
More than our lives,
your lives are well.
more than my house, more than my children coming to visit me, my grandchildren coming to visit me, and maybe the whole of the road decides to sink.
There's nothing I can say that won't antagonize you, so
No,
I'm trying not to talk.
I
I know you're not, but I'm saying I can't say anything that won't be.
to know how we're gonna just get the road fixed so that we can move on and get things done. It's gonna start raining. We're going into the end of September, October. It's gonna start pouring rain again and we're gonna end up having more problems. And I'm feeling that you don't really care about my safety, my family's safety, my neighbor's safety. And just fixing the roads that need to be fixed. The storm drain is broken.
And at least that will save some of this problem for us in the immediate future. I don't know,
That's one of the things that we disagree with very fundamentally, that fixing the road will fix the issue or fixing the storm pipe.
If you listen to us, you would understand that that's quite possible.
I've heard you and I'm saying it's one of the issues we fundamentally disagree on.
And his consultants, other consultants.
Okay, that's the unfortunate reality, is that the view that you have of how this may be resolved and fixed is not one that's shared by the District of Seashell.
But if you're running a business, do not fix part in hopes that maybe it fixes the next part, which maybe would fix the next part, so that you don't have to spend the $10 million to have all these high-end things done in our neighborhood. Maybe fixing the storm drain might alleviate some of the water from seeping out and you're making another sinkhole on the road.
Okay, I recognize Radine and then Chris and then Pam.
So just in further to what Donna said, and I really, you guys, I'm looking at each of you, I just find it unbelievable. And this is my dad, by the way, and I'll echo part of what he said tonight, which is that it's unbelievable to me that you will go home and sleep. And I hope you don't actually when it rains, because if something happens to one of us, I don't understand how that cannot be on each and every one of you. I really don't, honestly. At least on your conscience, okay? Nothing more than that. Because we have to sleep through it every night. And I see nothing. I don't see a solution. It's been 2 years. And there's nothing. And I hear something vague about, well, you know the risks too. I don't know what that means. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I don't know who's supposed to fund me to go anywhere, actually. So I have no answers, and I don't understand how you can leave here tonight without providing any answers, and how you will sleep if something happens to somebody in my community. Sorry, I'm mad.
I know, I can tell you're mad. Chris and then Pam, and then it's becoming quite circular and late, so I'm gonna adjourn the meeting after those comments. So Chris and then Pam.
You're saying that you disagree with the fact that fixing the broken pipe and portion of that road is going to solve the problem.
Yes.
There was a letter from Web Engineering issued in 2015 warning the district. that if you do not fix this pipe, the problem will expand further east. July 11, 2017, Turbo report confirms that the reason that it expanded east on Gale Avenue in front of my house is as a result of that. And it confirms that if you don't do anything, it will further expand and now start damaging private property. There is nothing wrong with my property now, but results are your inaction to correct and fix a broken pipe, it is actually causing damage to private property. If this was my property causing damage to public property, you would be knocking on my door and asking me to fix it. But your property, your broken pipes are damaging my property and probably causing damage to the foundation of my home as a result of your broken pipes. Engineers have said that in 2015, it's been confirmed by your engineers in 2017, and you're still denying that fixing that will not slow down the process, will not help the problem that we are dealing with right now, while you're trying to work on the bigger problem. It is like saying, I've got an old car, I've got a flat tire. The car is going to die anyways. But in the meantime, you're driving around the streets and ruining public property with this flat tire because you don't care. Your pipes are broken. Those are known facts. Fix the pipes that are broken while you're working with your engineers and your consultants to figure out what the bigger problem is. You guys have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on engineering and legal fees where the problem could have been fixed for $280,000 according to your own engineers back in 2015. And perhaps if that was done, we wouldn't be sitting here tonight talking about the expansion of that problem in front of my house and Rod's house.
Pam's going to be the last speaker.
He almost said exactly what I was going to say, but what I was, we had a little problem in Toronto, not nearly like this, and it took us 3 years to convince all your engineers and synapses with all their letters and numbers after their names that we knew what the problem was. 3 years, and they finally listened to us. Now it's fixed. Other than that, it just kept falling apart. Why don't you just listen to the people that live there, who have some common sense, and maybe they don't have BS whatever after their names, and try it, because if nothing else, it won't kill you. It's like chicken soup, where you're just afraid to lower your brows and get on with the job. And as far as people going home, sleeping at night, half of you look like you're having a nap now, so why worry about sleeping tonight? You're just here because you said you would have a meeting, and oh well, we have to put up with it. And so I don't even live there, and I'm getting pissed off because it happens all the time.
Thank you. I'm going to adjourn the meeting, and thank you very much for coming tonight. And I'm sorry that it's been disappointing, and we've been unable to deal with what you see as a simple, straightforward issue.
So, Mr. Mayor, I know you've adjourned the meeting, so this is okay, but you said that you would report back